Behind the heroine, poisonous whispers of aristocrats can be heard, questioning her origins. Young Etisha Hines, gathering all her will into a fist, bravely greets the Grand Duke Kane Wintel himself. The Duke's icy calm conceals the fact that he already knows the name of the modest Lady Hines. The imperious young man waits with cold curiosity to find out why the unknown lady dared to disturb him. The determination in the heroine's eyes leaves no doubt about the seriousness of her request for a private conversation. The girl looks around anxiously, realizing that the walls of the palace have ears. A merciless time counts down the last months of the girl's life, and hope fades with each passing day. Desperation pushes Lady Hines to take a risky step, because more than just her reputation is at stake. The heroine's gaze lights up with desperate hope when she reveals the Duke's main secret. Behind the young man's icy calm lies a shock, as the heroine reveals a secret directly related to his child. Desperate for help, the heroine offers herself as the ideal fictitious bride, ready to take the empty place next to the Duke. The confidence in Etishi's voice leaves no doubt that the girl considers herself the only solution to Kane's problem. The heroine promises to be only a shadow, a temporary solution that will not hinder either the Duke himself or his secret lover. The young lady's vow to remain invisible is laced with bitterness, as she promises to disappear from the Duke's life without a trace. The heroine's main trump card is her imminent death, which will forever free the Duke from the need to look for a new wife. The Duke's icy refusal sounds like an accusation, calling into question the morality of such a desperate offer. The girl reminds Kane that cruel rumors about the fate of any of the Duke's brides have long been public knowledge. Lady Hines's desperate cry hits home, accusing the young man of hypocrisy. The Duke's cold statement shatters all illusions, revealing the cynical truth of an aristocratic marriage as a profitable deal. Etishi's unwavering determination proves that she fully understands the cruel rules of the game and is ready to go all the way. The dying heroine, with pain in her heart, asks not for love, but only for the opportunity to bear the title of the Duke's wife. Behind this desperate desire lie years of humiliation and loneliness spent in the shadow of an indifferent family. Marriage to the Duke becomes the girl's only chance to escape the shackles of the hated house. Lady Hines's final wish is a brief moment of peace away from her cruel relatives. Casting aside the last of her pride, Etisha, in desperation, begs the powerful youth to be her savior. Kane's direct question forces the girl to reveal a terrible secret about her fatal illness. A sudden attack of weakness overtakes the heroine, but in her soul there is not a drop of regret for her brave act. Under the light of a lonely moon, the Duke finally admits the desperate lady's bitter rightness. The young man's gaze is full of cold determination. Marriage for the guy is just a duty, not a search for feelings. Duke Wintel accepts a risky offer, making a deal that will change their destinies forever. Duke Kane coldly declares that instead of love, he is proposing a mutually beneficial marriage contract. The young man formally asks for Etishi's hand, sealing their business agreement. A sparkling ring falls on the heroine's finger, sealing their destinies with a magical oath. The girl looks at the Wintel family ring with trepidation, not believing in her salvation. Through tears of happiness, the heroine swears that the Duke will never regret his decision. Memories take Etisha back to the day her cruel stepmother refused to even listen to her pleas for help. The girl tried to talk about the terrible diagnosis, but was met with a wall of cold indifference. Tears of despair flow down the heroine's cheeks as she reveals the secret of her fatal illness. Lorraine's heartless stepsister listens with icy curiosity to the confession of an incurable disease. The indifferent father and stepmother discuss Etishi's painful death as if it did not concern their own family. The heroine tearfully recalls the doctor's cruel sentence, which left the girl only a year to live. Despair overwhelms Etisha, leaving only one agonizing question unanswered. The cruel stepmother only gloats, reminding her stepdaughter of the merciless countdown. The girl's biological father turns away with disgust, considering his daughter's fatal illness to be nothing more than an unnecessary worry. The stepsister contemptuously orders the dying girl not to leave her room. The entire family leaves the room in mock disgust, abandoning Etisha to her fate. From an early age, the girl was cruelly punished, forced to believe that she herself was to blame for the bad treatment. The cruelty of her stepsister only strengthened the heroine's belief in her own worthlessness. The stepmother's humiliation manifested itself even in small things, forcing her stepdaughter to wear her sister's old dresses. A sudden revelation pierces the girl's consciousness. she finally understands that the real monsters are her own family. The heroine bitterly accepts the fact that she has no real family in this world. After the secret of her illness was revealed, the girl found herself locked within the walls of the mansion. An overheard conversation between the maids about the Duke's search for a bride becomes her last hope. Rumors about the Duke's secret mistress only fuel the girl's despair, leaving no time for doubt. In the face of imminent death, the heroine's only desire is to escape from the hated house. The memories give Atisha determination, and she confidently promises the Duke that she will not cause trouble. The girl asks the Duke to immediately announce their wedding right at today's banquet. Kane asks with a shrewd look if his bride would like to leave the capital immediately after the ball. The desperation in Lady Hines' voice makes the Duke wonder about the reasons for such haste. The girl's request goes against all the traditions of high society, where a wedding is preceded by a long period of engagement. Atisha understands that the sudden announcement of the Grand Duke's marriage will cause a huge scandal. The girl is not concerned about her own reputation, but about the possible damage to Duke Kane's honor. The heroine gives in, asking at least for an engagement, and reminding the Duke of the need to talk with his companion. Kane interrupts her decisively, promising to fulfill all her requests and calling the girl Duchess Vintel. The Duke wants Atisha to understand the seriousness of their agreement, and the girl is speechless with gratitude. The image of a stern and cold warrior, a hero of the northern lands, emerges in the heroine's thoughts. The girl cannot understand the reason for the Duke's kindness, doubting whether it is pity or a mask. Ultimately, Atisha decides that the Duke's motives are irrelevant and should not concern her. The heroine once again firmly asks to announce their engagement on the last day of the banquet. The couple's appearance in the hall immediately generates a wave of surprised whispers and incredulous gossip. Two aristocrats discuss the lateness of the Hines family's eldest daughter to the first day of the banquet. The heroine's stepsister, Lady Lorraine Hines, makes a dramatic appearance in the hall, capturing everyone's attention. Lorraine furiously lashes out at Atisha, accusing her sister of using her personal invitation. An angry Lorraine yells at her sister, worried about her reputation, which was ruined on the very first day of the banquet. Atisha tries to justify herself by explaining that she came at the general invitation of the Hines family. Lorraine angrily grabs Atisha, declaring that anything bearing the Hines name belongs to her alone. With a predatory smile, Lorraine reminds her sister that she also belongs to the Hines family, and therefore is her property. The stepsister contemptuously reminds Atisha that she owes everything to her and had no right to leave her room. Lorraine mockingly lists her past good deeds, which in reality were just a form of control. Flashbacks show how, as a child, Lorraine dressed up Atisha like a doll, enjoying her power over her. As a child, little Atisha timidly asked her sister for permission to show her parents in a new outfit. Lorraine immediately cut short her joy, accusing her of wanting to show off to others. As punishment, the cruel sister mercilessly cut off Atisha's hair, calling her her personal doll. Even years later, Lorraine continues to assert her complete power over the weeping Atisha. Newspaper clippings are full of headlines about Lorraine's scandalous antics, from arson to the destruction of the Crown Prince's valuable property. Society had long recognized Lorraine as a bad person, but no one knew the true extent of her cruelty. Thanks to her family's indulgence, Lorraine became accustomed to always getting what she wanted. The girl mercilessly broke and tore into pieces everything she didn't like. Over time, the aristocrats stopped condemning Lorraine, eagerly awaiting her new outrageous antics. Lorraine's beauty and charisma made people adore her, forgiving any wrongdoing, which only caused disgust in Atisha. Lorraine, with a cruel grin, reminds Atisha that she will always be just her personal doll. Since childhood, the heroine's sister instilled in her that she should be invisible to the rest of the world. Atisha asks with cold calm if Lorraine can no longer play with dolls. The girl speaks directly about her fear of sudden death, hinting at her illness. In a rage, Lorraine orders her sister to return to the mansion immediately and never show herself in public again. Usually obedient and timid, Atisha always obeyed her sister, but not this time. For the first time in her life, the heroine fights back, resolutely pushing away Lorraine's hand. With newfound courage, Atisha declares that she will stay at the banquet and suggests that her sister go home. The girl firmly declares that she intends to come to the banquet every day until it ends. Atisha calmly turns and walks away, leaving a stunned Lorraine standing there. At the last moment, Duke Kane intercepts Lorraine's arm, preventing her from striking Atisha. The young man asks Lorraine with icy calm what she allows herself to do, which shocks the girl. Kane scornfully scolds Lorraine for violence, which is unacceptable in a noble family. Lorraine introduces herself coquettishly and complains of pain, asking the Duke to let go of her hand. The Duke releases the girl's wrist, but coldly warns that there will be no second time. Kane Wintel states bluntly that Lorraine will not go unpunished if she raises her hand against Lady Atisha again. Lorraine looks at her sister in shock, and the Duke worriedly asks Atisha if she is okay. The young man looks at the girl with understanding, now knowing the true reason for her request to go north. The mention of the north reaches the guests and Lorraine, causing a new wave of whispers. An enraged Lorraine demands an immediate explanation from her sister as to how she dared to plan to leave without her permission. Atisha coldly declares that her relationship with the Duke is none of her sister's business, infuriating Lorraine. The Duke completely ignores Lorraine's question, turning to Atisha with a request to forget about what happened. Despair grips the heroine, because she is sure that after such a scandal, the Duke will refuse the marriage. Kane Wintel suddenly decides to make an announcement immediately, without waiting for the banquet to end. A shocked Atisha does not understand his intentions, and then the Duke directly declares that he will announce their marriage. Lorraine is in an indescribable rage, not believing her ears and shouting the word marriage. The Duke loudly announces to the entire hall that Lady Atisha Hines will become his wife. The young man declares that from now on, his fiancée bears the surname Wintel, and any attempt to discredit her will tarnish his honor as well. Duke Kane solemnly swears in front of all the guests, raising Atisha's hand with the family ring. The aristocrats in the hall freeze in complete shock, unable to believe such a sudden marriage. Surrounded by whispering guests, Lorraine cannot believe that her dutiful sister is marrying a duke. Lorraine's face twists with anger when she decides to use the information about Atisha's illness. Atisha looks at her sister in panic, fearing that she will reveal her fatal diagnosis to everyone. The heroine fears that news of her illness will force the Duke's vassals to demand an annulment of the marriage. Lorraine approaches her sister to talk to her before leaving, reminding her of her new status. Atisha firmly declares to her sister that she is leaving their home forever. Lorraine looks at her sister with feigned pity, calling her a stupid child who should not be left unattended. In an ominous tone, Lorraine reminds Atisha that she should have stayed in her room, which greatly frightens the girl. Duke Kane interrupts their conversation, coldly telling Lorraine that the only abnormal person here is her. The young man comes to his fiancée's defense, confirming that Atisha has made clear her desire to become the Duchess of Wintel. Duke Kane is furious and orders Lorraine to leave, reminding her that her actions are tarnishing his reputation. The young man publicly expels Lorraine from the banquet, advising her to think about her behavior before he and Atisha return from the north. With cold contempt, Kane declares that he never wants to see Lorraine again. Lorraine changes tactics and, with feigned concern, asks Atisha to return to the mansion with her. With a sinister smile, the girl invites her sister to play with dolls, hinting at the continuation of childhood bullying. The Duke notices that Atisha looks unwell after her sister's threats. Kane, with genuine concern, invites his bride to rest and come to her senses. Left alone, Atisha cannot believe that the announcement of her wedding will be made in just one day. The heroine is overcome with fear, because there are 2 days left until the end of the banquet, and she is afraid that her father will use physical punishment again. Kane enters the room to check on Atisha, and again asks with concern about her well-being. Atisha asks anxiously if the public quarrel with her sister has created trouble for the Duke. Kane confidently reassures the girl, promising that by the time he returns, everyone will forget about the scandal and will only bless the couple. The Duke admits that he behaved rather rudely, which surprises the rescued girl. The young man explains that he considers his actions rude, as he was hasty in announcing the wedding. With sincere gratitude, Atisha counters, claiming that the Duke's action was a real salvation for her. Kane's look betrays surprise. The boy didn't expect to hear words about help. The Duke coldly states that he acted solely out of a sense of duty, defending the honor of his family. Atisha takes Kane's words in stride, insisting that motives are irrelevant and the outcome remains the same. The girl says with unshakable confidence that for the first time she felt real support. With quiet bitterness, the heroine admits that the Duke was the first who dared to put his cruel sister Lorraine in her place. Atisha realizes with warmth in her heart that the Duke will never understand how important his support is to her. Kane's gaze betrays unexpected understanding, and he asks her directly about her next steps. At first, the heroine does not understand the question, thinking that it is about their departure to the north after the banquet. The Duke gently corrects her, clarifying that he is interested in her plans for this evening. The young man offers Atisha a choice: return to the Heinz mansion or go with him. Kane shrewdly points out that she doesn't want to see her family, and the girl quietly agrees. In connection with their imminent departure, the Duke invites Atisha to stay at his villa in the capital. He explains that after the official announcement of the wedding, their stay together will not cause a scandal. The girl is touched by the unexpected care, but she feels guilty because the only thing she can offer in return is a quick death. Despite her gratitude, Atisha feels unworthy of such kindness and tries to refuse the offer. Duke Kane explains that he is offering his villa out of concern, as staying at the Heinz mansion could be dangerous for her. After some thought, Atisha accepts his offer, sincerely thanking the Duke. Kane repeats again that gratitude is of no use because he is not acting to help her. Despite his words, Atisha, with gratitude in her voice, claims that she still received help and is very grateful. Meanwhile, at the Heinz mansion, Etchishi's father slams the table in rage upon learning of his daughter's marriage to the Duke. Viscount Heinz shouts that this is impossible, because his talentless daughter has no talent to become a duchess. Etchishi's stepmother echoes his indignation, wondering how the Duke could decide to marry without his family's consent, knowing the rumors about his mistress. Lorraine bursts into the office, demanding that her parents stop the wedding, confident that her sister will return to her. The stepmother agrees to give up her worthless stepdaughter, but Viscount Heinz suddenly stops her. With a sly squint, Etchishi's father decides that for now, they shouldn't interfere with this unexpected wedding. Viscount Heinz already dreams of how his daughter's marriage to the Duke will bring him untold riches and expand his business all the way to the north. Lorraine screams at her father in despair, not understanding how he can be happy about such a union. The girl angrily reminds her father that Atisha will soon die from her incurable disease. The stepmother supports her daughter, perplexed as to how it was possible to let a sick child go to the banquet. Viscount Heinz, with a sinister smile, states that this is precisely why they need to send Atisha to the north as soon as possible. With a sly look, the father explains that if an incident with his daughter happens in the north, their family will be left out. The Viscount suggests simply pretending they didn't know about the illness, and that the family doctor could simply be paid to keep quiet. Atishi's father is in a hurry to organize the wedding as soon as possible, while his daughter is still alive. Lorraine hysterically screams that she will not allow Atisha to become a duchess and demands that she be locked in the mansion. The stepmother raises the issue of the dowry, realizing that marriage to the Duke will require enormous expenses from their family. Viscount Heinz, with a sly grin, declares that he has already decided and calculated everything. Atisha rides in a carriage with the Duke. Unable to believe what is happening, the girl looks out the window with delight, feeling the taste of freedom for the first time in a long time. The heroine shyly admires the Duke, considering him the most handsome man in the empire. The girl, full of admiration, recognizes the Duke as the most handsome man. The memoirs reveal the long-standing friendship between the Duke and the Emperor, which began in their youth in the harsh northern lands. The heroine naively assumes that beautiful people, especially those who fought together, are always close. The Duke's unexpected question about how well the girl tolerates the cold takes her by surprise. The Duke directly reminds us of the harsh northern climate, which can be dangerous for sick people. The girl resolutely assures that she will endure all the difficulties and will not become a burden on the way, despite her poor tolerance to cold. Atisha tactfully suggests that the Duke contact his loved ones, as this will be more difficult to do after leaving for the north. With a sad smile, the girl admits that she never had any friends. The heroine explains that her sister always interfered with her communication with her peers and spread gossip behind her back. The Duke's sudden concern confuses Atisha, causing her to question his true motives. The girl recalls the moment of her engagement, realizing that she never thought about running away. The Duke asks permission to ask one last question to clarify something for himself. The young man asks Atisha directly whether she wants to break off relations with her family, take revenge, or receive an apology. A sudden jolt from the carriage makes the Duke instinctively pull the girl towards him, protecting her from the blow. Kane calms a frightened Atisha, saying that it was the driver's fault and she has nothing to apologize for. The Duke promises to deal with the driver upon arrival at the mansion, tenderly hugging the girl. Atisha notices that despite the Duke's cold words, His embrace is very warm. The girl stands up for the driver, claiming that it was an accident and he should not be punished. Kane calls Atisha too kind, but is adamant that the culprit must be punished. The heroine understands that the Duke's words about guilt and punishment are not actually addressed to the driver. While in his arms, Atisha feels his hot breath and understands the Duke's hidden emotions. In her eyes, he appears as a fiery, vengeful spirit, hidden under a mask of dispassion. The girl admits to herself that she never thought about revenge, because all her courage went into running away from home. Before, she didn't have time to think about what she wanted from a family, but now everything has changed. Atisha asks the Duke for time to think, stating that she first wants to sever all ties with her family. The Duke asks if this answer is enough, and gently pulls her hand. The Duke accepts Atishi's answer, saying that it is quite sufficient. Atisha asks in surprise if the Duke owns this huge villa. Before them appears a luxurious villa, which in size exceeds the Heinz family mansion. The Duke calmly explains that this villa was given to him by the Emperor himself. He adds that the Emperor did this so that he would have a reason to visit the capital more often. Atisha looks at the mansion with admiration, understanding the reason for such a generous gift. The Duke notices that Atisha liked the villa, and she confirms this with a smile. With a serious look, the young man offers the girl to take the mansion for herself. Atisha, in complete shock, asks what he is talking about, not believing the Duke's generosity. Kane explains that he doesn't need the mansion, and that giving it to the future Duchess is reason enough. Atisha realizes that the luxurious mansion is a wedding gift that will return to the Duke after her death. Duke Kane announces that he will hand over the title deeds tomorrow. The young man explains that they will stay here until they leave for the north, after which the mansion will be at her complete disposal. The girl decides to accept the generous gift in order to allow the Duke to do as he wishes. Atisha says with a smile that she accepts his wedding gift with gratitude. Upon entering, the heroine cannot believe that such a huge and luxurious mansion will become her property. The girl is surprised by the Duke's calmness, but remembers that he was always known for his inexpressiveness. Atisha thinks about his fearsome reputation as a cold-blooded monster on the battlefield. However, the heroine understands that the Duke she sees now is not at all like this image. She comes to the conclusion that the young man, although inexpressive, does not seem cold to her at all. The heroine comes to the conclusion that the rumors about the Duke's rudeness are false, because behind his restraint lies deep attentiveness. The girl ponders the reasons for the Duke's kindness, doubting whether it is caused by a fictitious marriage or pity for the dying woman. In Atishi's eyes, Duke Kane appears to be a very good man, which causes him to silently question. The Duke orders the servants to show the girl her room. The young man says goodbye to the heroine until tomorrow, leaving her in a new environment. For the first time in a long time, the girl feels peace and freedom, admiring the night sky from the balcony of her new room. Morning in a luxurious bedroom brings the heroine a long-awaited feeling of freshness and peace. The morning awakening is interrupted by the knock of a maid named Marin, who brought water for washing. The agitated maid hurries Atisha, insistently asking her to quickly go to the living room. The maid delightedly reports that the Duke has summoned the capital's best designers, who are already waiting for Atisha. Atisha will be greeted by the capital's best artisans, including fashion designer Vivian, jeweler Lucy, and shoemaker Nigel. The girl recognizes them as the people who constantly gave gifts to her sister Lorraine. The memoirs show how Lorraine was always in the spotlight, serving as a muse for all designers. The sister constantly sent Atisha to carry out her errands, picking up orders from these same craftsmen. Designer Vivian once rudely scolded Atisha for being late, even though she hadn't actually finished the dress herself. Atisha remembers with bitterness how they all looked down on her, treating her like a servant. Having gathered her courage, the girl decides that today she will play the role of the Duchess of Vintel, and confidently opens the door. Atisha greets the masters politely, but they only respond with shock by uttering her name. From their reaction, the heroine understands that they have not yet heard the news about her sudden wedding. The designers begin to whisper, wondering if Atisha is the Duke's rumored secret mistress. Atisha, with a knowing smile, realizes that the designers have not yet received news of her marriage. The girl confidently addresses the masters, informing them that she knows about their invitation from the Duke. With a playful smile, she asks to tell them what tasks the Duke has assigned to them. Receiving no answer, Atisha feigns disappointment and prepares to leave, declaring that they have nothing to say. Vivian, the designer, stops her in a panic, explaining that the Duke has ordered a full outfit from them for the banquet in honor of the founding of the state. The girl listens calmly, realizing that the Duke deliberately turned to these particular masters. With a slight grin, Atisha notes that the Duke seems to have prepared some surprises, which confuses the masters. She proudly declares that this time all these luxurious things were ordered for her. The girl explains that she will need the outfit this evening for the second day of the banquet, and it must be a masterpiece worthy of the name Vintel. In response to the master's doubts about the deadline, Atisha confidently declares that they will cope, since all the materials she used for her sister's assignments are now at their disposal. Designer Vivian panics and declares that fulfilling the Duke's order will ruin their business for 3 months. Atisha, with icy calm, reminds the designer that the Duke's own request cannot be ignored. The heroine tries her best to hide her inner turmoil so as not to reveal her insecurity. The girl's mind flashes with the understanding of her main role, to be a bright bait to distract attention from the Duke's true deeds. For a moment, the heroine is tempted to imitate her domineering sister in order to achieve her goals. The cruel memories of her sister's tyranny instantly sober Atisha, reminding her of the humiliations she had endured. The heroine, with firm determination, rejects the idea of becoming like her tormentor, choosing her own path. With cold calculation, the girl turns her attention to the jeweler and shoemaker, ignoring the designer's refusal. Jeweler Lucy reflects with disdain on the Duke's choice, considering Atisha an unworthy commoner. Shoemaker Nigel doubts her words, suspecting that all this confidence is nothing more than a skillful bluff. Designer Vivian is desperate to find out what kind of relationship Atisha has with the Duke. The heroine coldly reprimands the designer for disrespectful behavior and inappropriate personal questions. Duke Kane suddenly enters the room, interrupting the tense conversation. The masters jump up from their seats, shyly greeting the Duke who entered. The young man apologizes for being late, explaining that he needs to sort out the land documents. Kane explains that the ownership of the villa and the surrounding land is now combined in one document. The Duke asks Atisha to place her hand on the magical seal to complete the transfer of rights. After activating the seal, he solemnly declares Atisha the rightful owner of this villa. The designers look at each other in shock, not understanding why they would give their mistress such a generous gift as land and a mansion. Jeweler Lucy notices the Wintle family ring on Atisha's finger and is horrified to realize that she is not looking at her lover, but at the future Duchess. Jeweler Lucy, realizing her mistake, bows and promises to create a masterpiece worthy of the reputation of the Vintel family. Shoemaker Nigel vows to make the most beautiful shoes in the country, even if it means using up all his savings. Designer Vivian falls to her knees, tearfully begging for forgiveness for her rudeness and promising to sew the best dress of her life. Duke Kane, turning to Etika, says that all this was done for the joy of his wife. The young man notices that the lady does not look happy and takes her hand. Kane tells the girl not to listen to the designers and is going to send them away, believing that there are enough of them already. Atisha stops him, realizing that if word gets out about the Duke's loss of trust, the designers will have to close their salons. The girl assures the Duke that everything is fine and there is no need to send them back. Despite wasting his time, she explains that she has been to their salons and can trust them with an order, since she needs something to wear. The Duke agrees, giving Atisha complete freedom of choice and allowing her to do whatever she wants. Atisha happily agrees and sincerely thanks the Duke for the opportunity. Duke Kane announces that he needs to step away for a short time and will return after dinner. Left with the designers, Atisha briskly suggests starting work on the dress, jewelry, and shoes. In his thoughts, the Duke recalls Atisha's sincere gratitude for believing in his help. The young man admits that although he denied it, in fact he did help her. He reflects that all his actions, from the wedding announcement to the invitation to the mansion, were an expression of care. The Duke understands that such an attitude can be considered normal towards the future Duchess of Vintel. Kane realizes that the girl seems to be grateful to him for all his actions. He doesn't want Atisha to know the true meaning of the magic tablet, which is the reason for his help. The Duke decides to never use the nameplate, hiding his true motives from the girl. Assistant Valdepram reports to the Duke that he has studied the Heinz family's investigation report. Duke Kane reads the document, already roughly knowing the details of the information contained in it. The report tells of a weak and lonely girl, Atisha, living in the shadow of her remarried father and half-sister. Kane inquires about the guest designer's relationships with Lady Atisha. The assistant reports that all three are close with Lorraine Heinz, who used Atisha as a porter. Lorraine deliberately bullied her sister, sending her out for unfinished orders and forcing her to endure humiliation. The report describes Echishi's appearance, her white face and pink hair. The Duke is deeply surprised by the girl's composure and dignity, despite all the difficulties she has experienced. He recalls that her life was filled with contempt and cruelty, but when asked about revenge, she answered differently. The Duke thoughtfully hugs the sleeping Atisha, remembering her words about how she has no time to think about revenge. The Duke assumes that Atisha is simply biding her time, so that, having become a duchess, she can take revenge on her offenders. He imagines how she will force everyone who insulted her to apologize and will cruelly punish them. Kane thinks she might even strip Viscount Hines of her title and turn her family into servants. In his imagination, she becomes a strong and powerful duchess, before whom everyone will bend their knees. However, the Duke remembers her words about the lack of thoughts of revenge and cannot understand how this is possible. He wonders if it has anything to do with her terminal illness and imagines himself in her place. The Duke understands that if his life were limited, he would certainly not give up on revenge. The young man reflects that if Atisha had known about the designers' backgrounds, she would have turned to other masters. Suddenly, the Duke orders his assistant to stop the carriage. Kane says that he urgently needs to go to the Imperial Palace, as he has not seen his friend for a long time. The maid offers Lady Atish more tea, but the girl politely declines while she waits for the Duke. Atisha is alone, wondering where the Duke went, as he left the mansion in the morning and hasn't returned yet. The heroine is overcome with anxiety because they were supposed to go to the banquet together and there was no time left to prepare. A sudden and unpleasant thought dawns on Atisha. Perhaps Kane has gone to see his secret lover. The girl suggests that the servant's silence is explained by the fact that the Duke arrived in the capital with his beloved. The heroine reminds herself that their marriage is a contract, and the Duke's personal life is none of her concern, as she promised. The voice of the servants announcing the Duke's return wakes Atisha, who had dozed off at the table. Kane climbs the stairs and apologizes to the girl for returning later than planned. The Duke sees Atisha in a stunning new outfit that the designers have created for her. The young man asks if the girl was waiting for him, to which she replies with a smile that she was, but not for long. Atisha sincerely thanks the Duke for the new dress, jewelry, and shoes. The girl, with an embarrassed smile, admits that this is the first time in her life that she has such beautiful clothes. The Duke notes with satisfaction that she is happy, and it does not matter to him who exactly made this outfit. The young man comes down the stairs, telling Atisha that the dress suits her very well. His cold behavior confuses the girl, and she decides that he didn't like the dress. The Duke promises to find other designers in the north, which completely upsets Atisha. Atisha is sad, thinking that the Duke really didn't like her outfit. On the second day of the banquet, in honor of the founding of the state, the atmosphere in the hall is lively. One of the guests recalls yesterday's commotion surrounding the wedding announcement. Another guest gossips about the scandal with Lady Hines, which her daughter told her about. The aristocrats who missed yesterday's event are discussing the news of the engagement with regret. The guests whisper among themselves in bewilderment, trying to understand whether Miss Atisha will really become a duchess. One of the aristocrats compares the unapproachable Duke to a flower on the peak of a snowy mountain. Another guest picks up the comparison, saying that even climbing such a slope is scary. They consider Atisha a weak, insignificant, and ugly girl, unworthy of picking this flower. Viscount Hines, Edishi's father, appears in the hall, attracting everyone's attention. The aristocrats note that neither Lorraine nor the Viscount himself seem to know about the impending wedding. One of the ladies, with a false smile, congratulates the Viscount on the upcoming celebration in his house. Viscount Hines accepts the congratulations with a smug look, assuming that the Duke simply took a fancy to his daughter. He praises the Duke, rejoicing that he is still young and in the prime of life, and sees great benefit in this union. The guests are shocked to hear that the ruthless Duke seems to have truly fallen in love, and the Viscount grins maliciously, glad that he values his daughter. Viscount Hines plays the role of a loving father to the public with gusto, telling them that the young couple cannot live without each other. One of the aristocrats wonders why the Viscount's eldest daughter, Lorraine, reacted so violently yesterday. Edishi's father lies that his eldest daughter is a troubled socialite, and he hid the news of the wedding from her to avoid jealousy. Despite the plausible explanation, Viscount Hines admits that one thing worries him. The guests are puzzled as to what the Viscount could be worried about when everything has already been settled. With feigned sadness, He reports that the Duke refused to accept the dowry from their family. This news causes a new wave of shock and whispers among the aristocrats. The guests discuss how refusing a dowry is an unheard of act, proving that the Duke often stands up for Edisha. Viscount Heinz concludes with pathos that this is true love, continuing his performance. Viscount Heinz continues to convince his guests that the Duke believes that love cannot be bought with money. He recalls the Duke's fearsome reputation, a ruthless monster from the north. Edishi's father complains that refusing the dowry will ruin their family's honor, but the Duke is too stubborn. One of the guests rightly remarks that arguing with the Duke means inviting trouble. Viscount Heinz is already swimming in gold in his dreams, rejoicing that instead of a dowry, the Duke offered him a share in the northern trading business. Duke Kane Wintle and Lady Etisha Heinz enter the hall with a solemn entrance, capturing everyone's attention. In the eyes of the aristocrats, Etisha appears simultaneously as the most insignificant wildflower and the most brilliant gem. The guests are amazed to see mana flowing through her clothes and jewelry, confirming that the Duke is in love and is not sparing any expense on her. Viscount Heinz approaches his daughter with feigned joy, saying that he is both glad and saddened by her marriage. With false tenderness, he offers to hug his daughter, inviting her to come to Daddy. Etisha recalls that her father was always strict and terrible, showing his soft side only to his half-sister. The girl was sure that, upon learning about the wedding, her father would take her back to the mansion and forbid her. But for some reason, he celebrated. She doesn't believe in his sudden paternal love. Knowing that he never loved her, Etisha looks coldly at her father, noting that he looks too happy. The girl tells her father directly that he looks too happy for a father giving his daughter away in marriage. Viscount Heinz replies with feigned joy that, of course, he is happy because his daughter is getting married. Etisha, with a piercing gaze, asks if he is happy precisely because she is marrying Duke Kane. The father freezes in shock, not understanding why his usually obedient daughter is behaving so insolently. The girl asks him with icy calm if he is happy that she is finally leaving the house. Etisha bitterly recalls how her father always tried to drive her away and wanted her dead. Viscount Heinz tries to laugh off his daughter's accusations with a nervous laugh. He pretends to be tender and asks Etisha to stop upsetting her father and come over for a hug. The father grabs his daughter by the hand and, leaning over, whispers that he will tell everyone about her fatal illness. He blackmails Etisha, saying that if the truth comes out, the Duke will be in serious trouble. The girl understands that her father wants to use her as a puppet to maintain close relations with the Wintle family. With a sinister smile, the Viscount orders his daughter to hurry and pretend that she has come to hug him. Etisha thinks with cold determination that tomorrow is the last day of the banquet, and the day after tomorrow she leaves for the north. She decides to endure one more day, as she has endured all her life, in order to later gain freedom. Duke Kane interrupts their conversation, forcefully pushing the Viscount away from his bride. Etishi's father, in a panic, fawns over the Duke, apologizing and saying that he was simply glad to see his daughter. Viscount Heinz continues to humiliate himself before the Duke, asking him to forgive him for the sake of future family ties. Kane looks at him with disdain, seeing in him only a snob who humiliates the weak and grovels before the strong. Edishi's father grabs the Duke's hand, insistently demanding that they discuss the dowry issue. In his mind, the Viscount gloats, confident that he can force the powerful Duke to bend to his will. The Duke ignores him and turns to Etisha, asking if her desire to break with her family has changed. The girl confirms with firmness in her voice that her decision will remain unchanged. Etishi's father laughs nervously, not understanding what his daughter and future son-in-law might be whispering about. The Duke coldly tells the Viscount that the Heinz family need not bother with any marriage-related concerns. The Viscount is horrified to realize that the Duke must have heard his boastful speeches to the aristocrats. With a trembling voice, he clarifies whether the Duke really will not accept the dowry and suggests setting a wedding date as soon as possible. The Duke coldly tells the Viscount that the Heinz family need not worry about anything concerning their marriage. He announces to the entire hall that Lady Etisha is renounced from her family from today onwards. This means that Etisha will no longer have anything to do with the Heinz family. The Viscount's mask of hypocrisy is shattered, and in desperation, he tries to appeal to his father's feelings. Edishi's father shouts in rage at how the Duke dares to take his daughter without the family's consent. His Majesty Emperor Lassus Ignavan enters the hall, noticing that the fun has already begun. The Emperor embraces Kane familiarly, reproaching him for being the last to know about the wedding. The Duke wearily asks his friend to be quieter, but he only playfully presses himself against him. Viscount Heinz, replacing his anger with flattery, introduces himself to the Emperor as Baron of the Heinz family. The Emperor, with a poisonous smile, replies that he is the very man who dared to exclude his daughter from the family. The Emperor, with a smile, informs the Viscount that the Duke has entrusted ownership of part of the capital's territory to Etisha Heinz. Etishi's father is shocked, because according to imperial law, the owners of capital territories are given a new title. The Emperor explains that those who inherit a new territory receive a new surname. This means that Etisha is no longer a member of the Heinz family. The Duke asks the Viscount with satisfaction if he now understands the situation. He hands Etisha a rune tablet, declaring her Lady Etisha now a baroness. The Duke emphasizes that Etisha is no longer part of the Heinz family, and they do not need to treat the Wintels as relatives. The young man coldly warns the Viscount not to entertain vain hopes for their marriage. With an icy gaze, Kane warns the Viscount against any attempt to threaten him. Etishi's father furiously attacks his daughter, accusing her of conspiring with the Duke and the Emperor. Viscount Heinz, in a panic, tries to justify himself to the Duke, assuring him that all his daughter's stories about the family are lies. He hypocritically claims that a strict upbringing was necessary for his daughters to become worthy women. In his thoughts, the father shouts at Etisha, reproaching her for ingratitude and betrayal of the family. The Viscount continues his performance, begging the Duke to listen to him and calling everything that is happening an injustice. Etisha coldly interrupts him, saying that she never said anything bad about their family. She calmly announces that she is leaving the family because this is exactly what he always wanted. The girl recalls how 7 years ago, when she was 13, her father showed his cruelty for the first time. He looked at his sick daughter with disgust, saying that not seeing her was like a breath of fresh air. Her father, in a rage, shouted at her to get out and threw her out of the carriage. Etisha will forever remember the day when she almost died under the wheels if the coachman had not stopped the carriage. Viscount Heinz dismissively brushes aside the old story, saying that, thanks to the family doctor, she doesn't even have any scars left. Etisha counters by saying that she has a scar from that day and should have left home back then. The girl, several years late, nevertheless tells her father that she is definitely leaving now and asks him not to look for her anymore. The Duke asks the Viscount with icy contempt if he really calls attempted murder a strict upbringing. Kane advises the Viscount not to even think about doing anything, hinting at serious consequences. The aristocrats around him realized with disgust the true nature of Viscount Heinz, who did not care about love and dowry. The humiliated Viscount burns with shame and runs from the ballroom in panic. The Emperor, smiling, orders the musicians to resume their music to continue the celebration. Etisha asks the Duke in surprise if it is true that she will now become a baroness. The Duke confirms, explaining that this was done specifically to sever any ties she had with the Heinz family. The Duke explains that he handed over to her land under the direct jurisdiction of the Emperor at noon today. He adds that the ownership and title are temporary and will expire after a certain period of time. By this time, they will already be in the north, so there won't be any problems with this. Etisha is amazed at how far-sighted and quick the Duke is, thinking through everything several steps ahead. She thinks with admiration that it is not surprising, because he rules a huge territory of the north. The girl thanks the Duke with deep gratitude for helping her. Kane responds with a warm smile that he was glad to help, and admits that he was worried that something might go wrong. Etisha says with delight that she is sincerely grateful to him and calls him her savior. The Duke clarifies that the mansion is now hers and will not disappear anywhere. The girl shyly asks why he is so kind to her, since she is just his fake duchess. Etisha sadly reminds him that she will simply become his false duchess. She comes to the conclusion that the Duke simply does not know how to express his emotions, despite all the rumors about his cruelty. The girl realizes that, despite his reputation, the Duke is actually very caring. Kane tells Etisha with a slight grin that she seems to have misunderstood something. The Emperor approaches the couple to congratulate them on their wedding and sits down next to Etisha. Etisha notices that the Duke looks disappointed when the Emperor reproaches him for the hasty wedding and lavish gifts. The Emperor says with surprise that he always thought that Kane would remain alone, and doubts that this is the same Duke Vintel in front of him. Kane angrily asks his friend to step away and stop talking nonsense, but he only laughs. The Emperor smiles and says that he is leaving Kane in the care of Lady Etishi. As a wedding gift, he gives the girl a pendant that will allow her to contact him for help at any time. The emperor reports that a certificate of noble title and a letter inviting him to breakfast have arrived. Atisha gratefully accepts the emperor's gift and decides to wear the pendant so as not to lose it. Duke Kane suggests returning to the mansion early, as he thinks the girl is tired. Atisha agrees, admitting that she too is a little tired after a busy day. The girl thinks with relief that this long day is finally coming to an end. Ahead of her lies the last day of the banquet, after which she will head to the north. Meanwhile, at the Heinz mansion, the Viscount returns home in a rage after his public humiliation. Lorraine and his stepmother greet him, eagerly asking about his conversation with the Duke regarding the dowry. In response, the Viscount starts shouting, ordering them to shut up. He overturns furniture in a rage, screaming that everything did not go the way he wanted. Viscount Heinz covers his face with his hands in despair, realizing that their family is doomed. Lorraine furiously demands an explanation from her father. Not understanding what he means, the father explains that Atisha somehow seduced the Duke and received land and a title in addition. Lorraine is shocked to realize that Atisha has completely severed ties with the family and is no longer a Heinz. She clenches her fists, not believing that the Duke will take Atisha to the north, and insists that her sister must return home. Lorraine's memories take her back 10 years to when her father brought home a new wife and her daughter, Atisha. Little Lorraine rudely asks Atisha what she wants when she timidly approaches her. Atisha says with admiration that she considers her little sister Lari the most beautiful in the whole world. She adds that everyone loves Lorraine, and she loves her very much too. From that moment on, Lorraine hoped that Atisha would always be on her side and would not go out and meet with friends. Lorraine wanted Atisha to always be close by and belong only to her, like a faithful doll. When Atisha fell ill, Lorraine became frightened and, finding no other way out, locked her in the room. Now that Atisha is leaving forever, Lorraine panics and realizes she will never see her again. The girl, in despair, orders the carriage to be prepared immediately, deciding to return her sister at any cost. She is convinced that only she can bring Atisha back, and vows to never let her go again, even if she has to die next to her. The stepmother stops Lorraine, reminding her that the Duke ordered her to stay here. Lorraine pushes her mother away in a rage, screaming that she doesn't care and orders her to be taken to her room. The stepmother anxiously orders the maids to be careful so as not to hurt her precious daughter. The Viscountess orders that Lorraine be locked up until the end of the banquet and that care be taken to ensure that she does not leave. Meanwhile, the servants at the Duke's mansion solemnly welcome the arrival of Kane and Atisha. Maid Marine offers to show Lady Atisha to her room with a smile. The girl stops the maid in surprise, saying that her room is on the other side. Marin explains with delight that the Duchess's bedroom was only prepared yesterday, and from now on, it is Atisha's room. Atisha is uneasy about her new status as a future Duchess. The Duke offers her to use the previous room if she is uncomfortable, but the girl refuses, not wanting to offend the servants. The heroine notices that the maid and the Duke are walking in the same direction and assumes that their rooms are next to each other. They come to 2 doors, and the maid points to one of them as Atisha's room. The girl notices with surprise that there is another door nearby. She asks, confused, if this is the door that Duke Kane just entered. The maid happily confirms that this is the Duchess's room, and Atisha panics when she realizes that her bedroom is next to the Duke's. Atisha tries to calm herself down, reminding herself that she is now a Duchess and must get used to such a neighborhood. Having gathered her courage, the girl resolutely enters her new room. She is surprised to find that the room is much larger than she thought, which makes her a little nervous. The enthusiastic maid begins to vie with each other to tell about the bedroom, wardrobe, and small bathroom. Atisha gently stops her, saying that they are leaving for the north tomorrow anyway. The girl asks the maid to help her undress because she feels tired. In the bathroom, the maid asks whether to leave the pendant given to Atisha by the emperor on her. Atisha relaxes in the warm water, preparing for sleep after a long day. She asks to remove the dress and jewelry, but decides to keep the ring and pendant. After the maid leaves, Atisha falls asleep in a luxurious bed, surrounded by a magical glow. As she falls asleep, Atisha enjoys the softness and warmth of the bed. Noticing the pleasant smell, she compares her feelings to a feeling of security, as if she were in someone's arms. The sudden thought of the Duke makes the girl feel embarrassed and hide her face in the pillow. Atisha tries to push away thoughts of falling in love, because of her sister, She never had any friends. Due to Lorraine's constant bullying, she was unable to communicate normally, even with her peers. Lying in bed, the girl reflects on the fact that she knows practically nothing about love. She wonders if it is because she constantly thinks about the Duke that he is so kind to her. Atisha admits to herself that this is the first time she has met such a kind and gentle person. The girl anxiously thinks about what to do if she really falls in love with him. She realizes that by receiving his help and becoming his bride, she is gradually turning into a real duchess. Because of the overwhelming thoughts about the Duke, Atisha cannot sleep. She notices a strange curtain in the wall and, coming closer, discovers a door handle behind it. The girl is surprised to realize that this is a secret door and, out of curiosity, opens it. Behind the door is the Duke's bedroom, and Atisha finds him half naked. In a panic, the girl apologizes, blushing and saying that she didn't know about the connected rooms. The Duke calmly explains that this is how married couples' rooms are usually designed. Atisha covers her mouth with her hand in embarrassment, remembering that the maid told her about this. She apologizes for the intrusion and is about to leave, but the Duke asks her to wait as he wanted to talk. The girl, blushing even more, doesn't know where to look, seeing his naked torso. Before she can react, the Duke is right in front of her, forcing her to take a step back. The Duke catches the retreating Atisha, enveloping her in his arms. He asks worriedly if she is okay, but the girl, embarrassed, only assures that everything is fine. Kane points to the lock on the door, explaining that there is one like it in her room. He says that if she locks herself, he won't be able to get in, so she can rest easy. Atisha thanks him shyly, scolding herself for her stupid thoughts. Suddenly, the Duke apologizes, picks her up, and carries her into the depths of the room. He explains that this makes it easier to check the place where she might have hit herself when she tripped. Kane carefully sits Atisha down on the sofa to examine her leg. The girl, blushing, thinks that all this seems like a dream, because she sees the Duke kneeling in front of her. He asks her to lift her dress to examine her leg, which leaves Atisha even more shocked. The Duke explains that this will make it easier for him to examine her ankle, and it would be impolite if he lifted her dress himself. The girl is embarrassed that the Duke wants to examine her, but she cannot believe that he touches her leg so calmly. To break the awkward silence, Atisha asks what he wanted to talk to her about. Kane replies that it concerns the maid Marin. He reports that Marine wants to go with them to the north and continue serving Atisha. The girl thinks, because the north is far away, and it will be difficult to return from there. She remembers that Marin has no relatives, and she will not be sorry to leave the capital. But there is another reason for concern. The Duke examines her leg and says that the sprain is not serious and will pass in a day or two. Atisha, knowing about his combat experience, agrees with his diagnosis. Kane promises to find another doctor immediately, as their family doctor is in the north, and he wants the girl to be treated. Atisha panics and tries to refuse help, saying that it is too late and her injury is not serious. She assures the Duke that everything is fine, but he remarks that her leg may swell even more tomorrow. Kane continues to insist, asking if she still doesn't want to call a doctor. He reminds her that because of her injury, she won't be able to dance at tomorrow's banquet, but he still doesn't want to undergo treatment. The girl stubbornly insists that everything is fine and promises to be cured by tomorrow, pointing to the pendant. The Duke is surprised to realize that this is a gift from His Majesty. Atisha explains that she finds the pendant very important, so she wears it even in her sleep. She tries to get up, saying that she will return to her room, but the Duke stops her. Kane invites her to contact him any time if anything bothers her, and walks her to the door. The girl thanks him with a smile, wishes him a good night's sleep, and returns to her room. After talking with the Duke, Atisha realizes that she won't be able to sleep. The third and final day of the banquet also ends successfully. The girl's leg is fine, and she is happily spending her last day in the capital. The Duke announces that they will travel to Laxon by carriage, and from there to the north via teleportation. Suddenly, a blonde girl approaches them, and Atisha looks at her in surprise. The girl introduces herself with a smile as Judith, or simply Dite. Atisha is wary of such a simple introduction, because a noblewoman would not introduce herself like that, which means she is a commoner. She reflects that no commoner or maid would so thoughtlessly get into the same carriage with a duke. Atisha comes to the conclusion that in front of her is the Duke's secret lover. Hiding her true thoughts, Atisha says with a polite smile that she is glad to meet you. The Emperor advises Atisha to take her mother's surname, as she will no longer need her old surname. The girl decides to follow the advice and introduces herself as Baroness Atisha L. Duke Kane apologizes to Atisha for not warning her about his companion. He explains that he cannot yet reveal who she is, as her appearance in the capital will cause a stir. Atisha, with feigned calm, assures that everything is fine and that she understands everything. Deep down, she convinces herself that there is nothing to be sad about, because there is nothing between her and the Duke. Kane suggests that Atisha leave before it's too late if she's not happy with something. The girl thinks bitterly how strange it is to meet the very mistress that rumors are circulating about. She admits that the Duke and Dite are perfect for each other. Atisha notices that Dite seems friendly and a good person, and assumes that the Duke is in love with her. The Duke asks Atisha with concern if she is feeling well, and suggests that they stop to rest. The girl quickly refuses, and the maid Marat helps her get more comfortable. Finally, they arrive in the city of Laxin, bathed in the rays of the setting sun. The Duke announces that they have arrived and invites them to get out of the carriage. Noticing her pallor, he again asks how she is feeling after the long journey. As Atisha gets out of the carriage, she stumbles and the Duke picks her up, advising her to watch her step. The girl is surprised to see a shining portal in front of her and asks if it is a teleport. A man approaches the Duke and reports that the teleport is ready and he has some questions that need to be resolved. The assistant clarifies that this concerns the investigation ordered by the Duke. Kane asks Atisha to wait a little, and she agrees with understanding. Dite approaches Atisha and remarks that Kane seems to be quite difficult to deal with. She says with a smile that no one knows what he is thinking, because he has not changed much since childhood. With confidence in her voice, Dite declares that no one can take the Duke away from her. The Duke returns from their conversation, and Dite gives Atisha a friendly hug. The assistant suggests that Judith teleport along with Atisha and the maid. Dite tells the Duke that they will go first, and he agrees, agreeing to meet in the north. The girls, along with the assistant and the maid, stand on the teleport platform. Atisha looks at the shining portal in admiration, and the Duke calls her. Before teleporting, Kane wants to tell Atisha something. He is going to reveal to her the truth about Judith. The Duke explains that he could not tell about Judith in the carriage because there were strangers there. Atisha sadly says that he didn't have to say anything because she already understands everything. She asks point blank if Miss Judith is the real reason behind their sham marriage. The Duke is surprised to realize that Atisha has misunderstood everything, thinking that he wants to cover for his mistress. He leans towards her and tells her that when she finds out the truth, she will have to keep it a secret too. Kane reveals the secret, saying that Judith is the Wintle family's weak spot and therefore must be hidden. Atisha is shocked by what she heard, not understanding why she was so busy hiding her ordinary mistress. Suddenly, the girl falls, and the Duke calls her name in concern. A sharp pain shoots through her body, and the magic spirals out of control, wrapping her in chains. Atisha realizes with horror that she has begun to suffer an attack of hypermania syndrome, and the Duke screams her name in panic. Atisha writhes in pain in the Duke's arms, unable to contain her groans. Through tears, she asks the Duke for forgiveness for her weakness. Kane gently asks her not to apologize and supports her until the attack subsides. He hugs her tenderly, reassuring her and telling her that everything will be okay. When the pain subsides, Atisha hesitantly says that she feels better, but is afraid that he will think she is pretending. The Duke was shocked by her words, not believing that she could come to her senses so quickly. The girl explains that the first symptoms are short-lived, and although the condition worsens in the later stages, it is still bearable. Kane says with a serious expression that he knows about the syndrome and can see that she is not at all well. He asks if these were the first symptoms, and Atisha, sitting on his lap, confirms. The Duke is relieved to realize that they still have time before the next, more severe symptoms appear. Atisha, with tears in her eyes, explains that, according to the doctor, the intervals between pains are long at first, but become shorter towards the end. She adds that, until then, she will have enough time to live her life. The girl tries to get up, assuring the Duke that she is fine. Kane suggests that she take a day off, postponing her departure to the north until tomorrow, since the teleport mana could affect her body. Atisha objects, saying that everyone else is already there and they are the only ones left. The Duke reassures her, saying that it's okay, and that it's even good that they are left alone. He suggests spending the day together, as they don't know what might happen, and it's better not to invite anyone. Kane explains that he is more comfortable without an entourage and asks her to be patient today, even if she feels uncomfortable without maids. The girl, touched by his sincere concern, agrees, feeling that the pain has passed. She thanks the Duke for his concern and says with a smile that he is a kind and good man. The Duke modestly remarks that he is not as good as she thinks, but Atisha objects. She says with sincerity that she doesn't think she will ever meet a man like him. The girl enthusiastically suggests going shopping, and they head to a bustling city fair. The Duke remarks that it is unusual to walk without servants and apologizes for the inconvenience. Atisha, smiling, assures that she is enjoying the walk and that she likes everything. She admits that she always wanted to experience something like this at least once in her life. The girl thinks with delight about the opportunity to walk along unknown streets and buy unprecedented things. She notices an interesting little shop and timidly invites the Duke to go inside. Kane replies with a smile that he noticed her interest in this shop from the very beginning. Atisha blushes embarrassedly, surprised by his observation. The Duke assumes that Atisha likes sweets, but the girl explains that it is not only that. She recalls that her sister Lorraine loved sweets, so they often went to such shops, but they never bought anything for her. The Duke gallantly opens the shop door, inviting her in. Inside, they are greeted by a friendly salesperson offering his assistance. Atisha looks with delight at the shelves with colorful sweets. She remembers a day from her childhood when her father offered Lorraine some sweets. Little Atisha timidly asked if her sister would share with her, but she greedily declared that it was all hers. The stepmother scolded Atisha, saying that she should be grateful to her father for the sweets for Lorraine, but she would get nothing. Breaking free from her unpleasant memories, Atisha decisively points to the sweets she wants to buy. The girl happily chooses what she likes, feeling as if she is regaining her lost childhood. Atisha asks the vendor if he has any sweets that are prepared only during the founding banquet. The seller happily confirms that the golden candies are still in stock, and Atisha decides to take them as well. The Duke, watching her, reflects on his life, full of indifference and cruelty, on the way to his goal. He is surprised that a girl can be so happy over some candy and consider him a good person for such a trifle. Kane asks if she's finished choosing, and Atisha, confused, asks if she took too much. The Duke pays generously for all the sweets, saying that no change is needed, and asks her to leave. The seller thanks them and invites them to come back again, and Atisha happily hugs her purchases. The girl stops the Duke and hands him golden candies, saying that they make wishes come true. She adds with a smile that her wish to leave the Heinz family has already come true, so she has nothing more to wish for. The Duke coldly refuses, telling her to eat them herself. Atisha apologizes, thinking she is being childish, but the Duke explains that he simply doesn't like sweets very much. Suddenly, an old woman in a hood approaches them and tells Atisha that she has a wish that needs to be made. She adds that she sees that the girl has a long journey ahead of her, and she is not from here. The old woman introduces herself as a fortune teller from a local restaurant and offers to tell their fortune if they eat there. Atisha enthusiastically invites the Duke to dine there, and he agrees. At the restaurant, they order the same dishes, and the fortune teller sits down at their table. The fortune teller decides to start with the fate of a young lady. She gazes into her crystal ball, saying she sees a bright future, happiness and bliss. The fortune teller says that difficulties lie ahead, but once Atisha overcomes them, she will find her happiness. Atisha breathes a sigh of relief, happy about such a good prediction. The fortune teller moves on to telling fortunes about the Duke's future. As soon as she looks into the ball, she begins to scream in horror. The fortune teller sees impenetrable darkness, pain, endless war, and a sword piercing a rock. Atisha asks with concern if she is okay. In horror, the fortune teller mutters about a terrible fate and, begging for forgiveness, falls to the floor. Without saying another word, she jumps up and runs out of the restaurant in panic. Atisha, perplexed, asks what the fortune teller could have seen that made her run away so quickly. The Duke reassures her that this is not a real prophecy and picks up the crystal ball. He explains that it's just a play on words and invites her to take a look. Kane reveals that the orb the scammers are using is filled with nothing but sinister, dark energy. The Duke says that a real fortune teller would not work in such a place and suggests that they leave. Atisha agrees, but she is troubled by the predictions, especially the good words about her fate. The girl wonders if Kane has secrets and whether he will share them with her. She reflects on the fact that she only knows him as a war hero who abandoned his mistress to save his future wife. Atisha understands that all her knowledge about him is just rumors and non-obvious things. She realizes that she doesn't really know anything about Kane as a person. The girl becomes curious about what his life was like before her, and she wants to know everything about him. Atisha thought that all her wishes had come true, and all that was left for her to do was wait for her death. But the longer she is around the Duke, the more she wants to know about him. Kane reminds her with a smile that she said she had no more desires. Atisha says with a smile that she still has one wish left. She tries the golden candy and is delighted to find that it is sweeter than she thought. The next day, Atisha and the Duke stand at the portal, ready to head north. During the teleportation, the Duke reassures Atisha, saying that he has contacted those who are waiting for them. Arriving at the place, the girl enthusiastically catches snowflakes. Amazed by the cold beauty of the lands of Duke Vintel, she happily spins around in the snow, feeling alive and free from the oppression of her family. Atisha is happy that she will never have to return to that house again. The Duke calls her, reminding her that it is cold outside. Assistant Valdeprom greets the returning Duke. Judith happily throws herself into Kane's arms, saying that she has been waiting for him. Judith says with a smile that the preparations for the banquet are finished and suggests that they quickly go to the mansion. The Duke asks again about the banquet in surprise, not understanding what they are talking about. The girl explains that his mother planned the banquet as soon as she heard the news of his marriage. Kane looks at Judith in bewilderment, and she informs him that the guests will arrive soon. Atisha watches the Duke and Judith leave together and feels a pang of jealousy. She is happy that she was able to walk this path with him, but she is a little envious that he is so welcome here. The girl thinks with a smile that she does not regret her desire, because it brought her here. The Duke returns and informs Atisha that his mother is hosting a banquet today. He explains that they had little time to prepare, but she must be present too. Atisha understands that she is the one who will soon disappear, and only the Duke and Judith will remain here. Atisha realizes that she should be grateful to Dita, because without her, she would have remained at the Heinz estate. She decides that she will attend the banquet as the one who will become the Duchess of Vintel. The assistant greets the arriving Duke, saying that they need to go to the banquet as soon as possible. The Duke asks if everything was calm in his absence, and the assistant confirms that he followed all instructions. Kane gives his assistant a separate task that he must complete after the banquet is over. They get into the carriage to go to the mansion. Atisha looks out the window with delight, amazed by the beauty of the snow-covered landscape. She asks the Duke what kind of mountain is visible in the distance. Kane replies with a smile that she will understand when they arrive at the place. As she gets closer, Atisha is surprised to realize that this is not a mountain, but the enormous Vintel estate. The Duke helps Dita and Atisha out of the carriage, and Dita thanks him. She says that she needs to go because the lady bought her a new dress. Dite adds with a smile that the lady takes good care of her, and sometimes even gives her gifts. She says goodbye to Atisha, saying that they will see each other at the festival. Atisha asks the Duke with surprise if Dite is also invited to the banquet. Kane explains that his mother gave her special permission. The girl is perplexed. On the one hand, the mother cares about her son's mistress, but on the other, the Duke called Dita the Vintel's weakness. Atisha realizes that she still cannot figure out the Duke's true motives. He promises to pick her up before the banquet, and she agrees. Atisha thinks with suspicion that no matter how you look at it, this sudden banquet seems very strange. Atisha recalls that even Lorraine's small parties required at least a week of preparation. She suggests that the sudden banquet is the Duke's mother's reaction to her son bringing home a bride and immediately announcing the wedding. The girl is sure that in this way, the Duke's mother wants to express her concern and disapproval. She looks in the mirror, realizing that she is a lady without a name in high society. She is terrified by the thought that her son, with such merits, will marry an unknown person. Atisha is sure that at the banquet, the Duke's mother will want to find out what kind of person she is. The girl is nervous because she has never been to this kind of event before. The guests at the banquet are already in full swing, discussing Atisha, the lady who will become the Duchess of Vintel. One of the ladies shares a rumor that Atisha is no longer Heinz, but a baroness, and this title was granted to her by the emperor. The aristocrats find all this very strange, since the Duke rarely visits the capital and went to war 3 years ago. The guests do not believe that the Duke's meeting with the Baroness was an accident and are eager to know the whole story. One of the ladies approaches Countess Mongmaid. Assuming that she knows more than the others, the Countess explains that the Duke's mother, Cyril, is the queen of Northern high society. The guest doesn't understand what she's getting at, and the Countess goes down the stairs. She addresses the guests, saying that today's banquet is dedicated to the Duke's marriage, and they wanted to share this happiness with everyone. With a cold look, Cyril adds that he hopes no one will make a fuss about the rumors. The arrival of Duke Kane Vintel and Baroness Etichiel is solemnly announced into the hall. They go down the stairs, and the Duke mentally asks his mother how she is. Eticha curtsies and introduces herself to Madame Cyril as Baroness Etichiel. The Duke's mother greets her coldly and asks her point-blank if she has heard that she is going to marry her son. Eticha responds with embarrassment that the Duke has accepted her marriage proposal. She adds with confidence that she was the first to propose marriage, and the Duke agreed. The Duke's mother, calling this incredible, silently turns around and leaves. Eticha panics, trying to understand why she is smiling, and is afraid that she has believed her and will let her stay. She recalls her sister's words about needing to attract attention to be a celebrity. Plucking up her courage, Eticha approaches Madame Cyril and asks if she has the honor of inviting her to the first dance. An invitation to the first dance shows that she wants to be part of her family, as it is usually danced with a family member or a loved one. Even if she is refused, she will still be able to dance with the Duke. The girl understands that dancing with the Duke will attract so much attention to her that no one will care about his mistress. However, Cyril calls her proposal stunning, and Eticha realizes that everything is going as she thought. Cyril asks again with surprise if the Baroness really wants to dance the first dance with her. At this moment, Judith appears in the hall in a beautiful white dress. The guests begin to whisper, recognizing her as the very same mistress of Duke Kane. They are puzzled as to what she is doing here and who invited her. Judith approaches Madame Cyril and thanks her for the invitation. The Duke's mother says with a warm smile that it is nice to see her here. Eticha is at a loss, because the banquet is supposed to be in honor of the marriage, but Madame Cyril has invited her son's mistress. She remembers her deal with the Duke. He helped her break ties with her family, and she was supposed to become his false wife. Now that the lady has greeted Judith in front of everyone, she will be able to be near the Duke, and everything fits perfectly. Eticha feels lonely and abandoned, like a distant island that no one would ever dream of setting foot on. Eticha bitterly realizes that her role here is ending, and regrets that everything ended this way. She scolds herself for her foolish hope that some candy could make her wishes come true. The Duke turns to his mother with displeasure, reproaching her for inviting Judith, as it will be unpleasant for Eticha. Cyril says coldly that he cannot afford it. Kane tries to intervene and clear up the misunderstanding, but his mother stops him. The Duke looks at Eticha reassuringly, telling her that it's okay, and understands that she is currently embarrassed. Cyril decides that it is still worth explaining everything. She announces to the guests that she raised Dita as her own daughter, and although she is a commoner, she sees her as her own daughter. Eticha is confused about what this all means, and Cyril explains that she invited her after learning of Kane's decision to marry. She concludes that it is normal for the family to gather together on such a beautiful day, calling Kane her son and Judith her adopted daughter. Cyril apologizes to Eticha for making her feel awkward. She admits with tears in her eyes that she was happy to learn about Kane's marriage. The Duke's mother explains that she was so worried that she could not sleep and suddenly arranged this banquet. She says with regret that she acted thoughtlessly. Eticha realizes with surprise and relief that Madame Cyril was not angry with her. The Duke's mother sincerely thanks Eticha for her desire to marry her son. She happily agrees to dance the first dance with her. The guests are perplexed, because the Duke's mistress turned out to be his adoptive sister, and they should not interfere with this. Cyril and Eticha whirl in the first dance, filling the hall with light and music. During the dance, Mrs. Cyril asks Eticha to take care of her son and promises to help with the wedding ceremony. Eticha happily thanks Madame Cyril, but she is interrupted. Embarrassed, the Duke's mother suggests that Eticha call her mother. She explains that she has been waiting a long time for Kane to have a decent girl and get married. Cyril admits that she tried her best to find him a suitable bride. She recalls showing her son portraits of young ladies, but he refused. She adds bitterly that he didn't even look at them. Kane was always cold and distant, avoiding conversations about marriage. Cyril says she just hoped Kane would find someone he could feel at ease with. She says with tears in her eyes that she wants the Baroness to become Kane's support for the rest of his life. Eticha listens to her with sadness, hoping that this is how it will be, but knowing the truth about her imminent death. The Duke tells Eticha with a smile that his mother is just shy. He adds that, in fact, she is even happier about his marriage than he is. Kane invites Eticha to the second dance, which is traditionally given to the lover. They whirl in a dance, attracting everyone's attention. Eticha admits that she is surprised, as she thought that his mother was strict and would not treat her well. The Duke explains that this attitude only extends within the family. The girl understands that Madame Cyril treats her so well only because she will become her son's bride. She is worried that if it turns out that their marriage is a sham, this should not happen. Meanwhile, Countess Mongmaid disdains Judith, a commoner taken in by Madame Cyril. Other ladies pick up the gossip, saying that they too would like to raise such a beautiful commoner as a pet. Aristocrats believe that if they take a man like Judith under their wing, it is clear what will happen next. They are sure that she is nothing but trouble for the Duke, and recall the rumors that she was his mistress. Countess Mongmaid wonders where the truth lies and whether Judith has deceived the Duke. Judith recalls how, at the age of 12, she became the adopted daughter of Madame Cyril. Since then, she grew up in the castle with Cain. While Cain was being educated as a nobleman, Judith could not be near him. Although they were sworn brother and sister, their paths often diverged. She noticed that he was not interested in relationships with any of the girls. This gave her hope that the only girl next to him would be her. When Madame Cyril invited her to the banquet, Judith felt the time had come to announce to the people that she and Cain had sworn to be brother and sister. Judith sadly realizes that neither the first nor the second dance at the celebration became her star dance. Countess Mongmaid thought with disdain how this commoner dared to ignore her words. Judith bitterly realizes that she was with Cain for so long, but it was not enough. The Countess shouts furiously at Judith, accusing her of insolence. She slaps the girl in the face, not believing that she dares to call herself the Duke's daughter. Judith holds her cheek in shock, not understanding why she was hit. The Countess waves her fan, ordering her to kneel and beg for forgiveness. Suddenly, a gray-haired man intercepts her hand, calming her down. He reminds them with a smile that they are at Vintel Castle for a banquet, and there is no point in ruining such a day. The man, who turns out to be Marquis Hexion, tells the Countess that there is no need to bother with punishment, and that he will deal with everything himself. Marquis Hexion smiles and says that he is worried that Lady Mongmaid might ruin her beautiful fan. He coldly advises Judith to return. The girl is struck by his beauty, his blood-red eyes and his ash-blonde hair. She compares him to a demon who seduces people, while Cain is like a hero from a fairy tale. Judith doesn't know where she should return to, but the Marquis reminds her that there is a place where she is awaited. She objects, saying that Madame Cyril invited her and that this is her first banquet in her life. The Marquise lifts her chin sharply and asks what was wrong with her expression at the Duke's wedding celebration. He says with disdain that she looked pathetic and did not answer when called. Judith pushes his hand away in embarrassment, saying that she knows. The Marquis coldly declares that he does not know why the lady called her, but someone like her cannot stay here. Judith asks defiantly if he treats her this way, because she is a commoner. In response, Marquis Hexion burst into loud mocking laughter. The girl asks in bewilderment what made him laugh so much. He tells her with disdain that she is not prepared for anything. The Marquis explains that if she is an adopted daughter, she must behave appropriately, and if she is a mistress, she must play her role. He states with confidence that she will not be able to withstand it. Hexion says that high society at a banquet is a real battlefield. Judith screams in despair, begging him to tell her how to become Cain's beloved, how to become a duchess. Meanwhile, the northern aristocrats warmly welcome Atisha, inviting her to visit. Atisha happily accepts the invitation, feeling her face burning from the wine she has drunk. Atisha breathes a sigh of relief, realizing that the day had been hard, but everything had ended well. She reflects that Judith was not a mistress, but the adopted daughter of Madame Cyril and Cain's sister. Royals generally do not associate with commoners, especially important figures like a duke. Atisha finally understands why the Duke was acting so strangely. She remembers his words about Judith being the Wintel's weakness and her existence needing to be hidden. But the girl is tormented by the question of why Madame Cyril decided to raise her. Atisha realizes that there are still many things she doesn't know. Cyril approaches her and praises her, saying that she was good today. She suggests that Atisha call her by her familiar name, but the girl timidly asks again. Cyril's face suddenly changes and coldly tells her to pretend that nothing happened. Atisha didn't expect to see such a stern side of Madame Cyrili. She apologizes with a smile and timidly calls her mom. Looking at Atisha's embarrassment, you might think she's angry, but in reality, she's just very embarrassed. The girl sincerely says that she is happy that she was received with such warmth. Cyril shouts in confusion that not everything is going so smoothly, since the banquet was organized in a hurry. Atisha promises to try to be a good daughter-in-law to repay her kindness. She asks Cyril to also call her something else, not Baroness. The Duke's mother asks, confused, what she should call her. Atisha, with a gentle smile, offers to call her daughter. Cyril steps back in shock. Then, embarrassed, apologizes and takes her hands. Cyril shyly says that she has to go, because she has so much to do in preparation for the wedding. She lists the wedding dress and jewelry that needs to be prepared, which have been kept in the Vintel family for several generations. The Duke's mother enthusiastically says that they must organize a lavish wedding celebration that will go down in history. Noticing that it is already late, Cyril suggests discussing everything tomorrow over tea, but Atisha corrects her. She shyly but firmly calls Cyril mother, and she happily responds. The Duke remarks with a smile that as soon as he had a bride, people immediately stopped paying attention to him. Atisha tenderly replies that his mother is simply worried about him. Cain says he was going to show her around the castle after the banquet, but it seems she had too much to drink. He offers to walk her to her room and gallantly extends his hand. On the way, the Duke advises her not to walk alone through the large mansion, and Atisha thinks that she still has so much to learn. The Duke explains to Atisha that they are in the main building, in the very heart of the Winter Palace. He says that in the east and west, there are small wings called the Snow Palace and the Dark One. Atisha asks the names again with surprise and inquires about who lives where. Cain replies that the Dark Palace is currently empty, and the heir of the Vintels will reside there. He adds that Judith lives in a tower outside the castle called the Star Tower. They go up the stairs, and the Duke informs them that her bedroom is on the 3rd floor, and that she has the entire floor to herself. Atisha is surprised, and the Duke explains that this floor belongs to him and his Duchess. He leads her to a set of luxurious doors, telling her that this is her bedroom. The girl notices with surprise that there is only one entrance here, unlike the capital's mansion. The Duke announces that he is retiring to his office to study the reports and advises her to rest. Marquise Hexion brings Judith to the Star Tower. He invites her inside. The girl asks doubtfully if she is sure she can be here. The Marquis assures her that there is no one else here. He remarks with a grin that Madame Cyril seems to have raised her in hothouse conditions. Hexion says with disdain that if she wants to be like a socialite, then she shouldn't behave like that. Judith shouts in a rage that these things were given to her by Madame Cyril, and that she should not treat them so carelessly. He asks with interest if she gave him this dress too. Judith proudly shows off her gorgeous outfit. The Marquise coldly remarks that, as expected, she knows nothing, which leaves the girl shocked. Marquise Hexion asks with a mysterious smile if Judith has ever heard the story of the imperial canary. He tells the legend of the first emperor, who found a bird with golden plumage in the mountains. The emperor fell in love with the bird, gave it a name, and protected it like the apple of his eye. Judith asks, puzzled, where he is going with this. The emperor treasured the canary so much that it was treated with special care. The servants were careful, fearing that something would happen to her, and the bird became more and more beautiful. But one day, the emperor wanted to see her soaring in the sky, and he released her from the cage. However, the bird was unable to spread its wings and only chirped about something. Marquis explains that due to living in a cage and excessive care, her legs have become weak and her eyesight has deteriorated. He concludes that the hawk has turned into a canary, which can only chirp, hinting at Judith's fate. Judith, horrified, asks if he is implying that she is like the canary. The Marquis confirms her guess with a smile, saying that she was lucky that Madame Cyril noticed her, and she turned into a bird, imprisoned in a rich cage. The girl cries in tears that this is not true, and the lady sees her as a daughter. Hexion asks sarcastically if she wasn't treated like a pet dog at the banquet. He says that although the ladies were angry, their attitude revealed the whole truth about her pitiful situation. The Marquis, with an icy gaze, reasons that Cyril's motives are irrelevant. He warns Judith that if she wants to escape this terrible reality, she must listen to his words. Meanwhile, Duke Cain looks at the peacefully sleeping Atisha. He undresses, revealing a back covered with scars from numerous battles. Cain lies down next to the sleeping Atisha, thinking that she has once again deceived those who hurt her. Looking at the sleeping Atisha, the Duke wonders why she did not take revenge on her offenders. He remembers his happy childhood, which suddenly disappeared, leaving only suffering. He had to come to terms with the sudden misfortune that befell his family. He desperately wanted to escape from this terrible reality, bound in chains. He didn't want to be part of this reality, but he had to live for everything to work out. A merciless revenge flashes through his thoughts. to cut off their heads, burn their bodies, and trample their ashes. He understands that Etisha, like him, wants to cut all ties with the past. But unlike him, she doesn't need revenge. The Duke can't understand why she isn't furious and doesn't want to kill them all. His thoughts are interrupted by the awakening of Etisha, who is surprised to find him in her bed. The Duke gently lays Etisha back down on the bed, telling her that all is well. He decides that they need to have the wedding in a month. The next morning, Cyril asks Etisha if her dress is torn, and she confirms that she tore it in her sleep. The girl doesn't understand when she managed to do this, because she dreamed of the Duke, and Cyril hands her a letter. It turns out to be an invitation to tea from Marquise Hexion for her and Diet. The Duke's mother recalls Marquis Hexion speaking with Lady Mongmaid and Daite at yesterday's banquet. She is worried that Daite might get into trouble because of the scandalous rumors surrounding the Marquise. Etisha is surprised to realize that Madame Cyril really does care about Dita. She sadly thinks that if she had such caring parents, they would share nice things with her. The girl imagines how they would hug her and worry if something happened to her. Cyril asks if Etisha will accept the invitation, and the girl answers in the affirmative. The Duke's mother asks what is going on with Dita. Etisha admits that she is not yet accustomed to banquets in the north, and many rumors make her nervous. She promises with a smile that next time she will definitely go with them. Later, Etisha admires the mansion's huge library. At the end of the library, she notices another door and wonders where it leads. The maids explain that this is the Duke's office, and he should be there now. At the door, she meets the Duke's assistant, Val de Pram. He says that the Duke was waiting for her, which greatly surprises Etisha. The assistant asks in surprise if she really didn't come because of the gift. The assistant opens a box full of luxurious jewels in front of Etisha. The girl tries to refuse the expensive jewelry, but the Duke insists that it is an apology. She doesn't understand what he's apologizing for, and then he reminds her of the torn dress. Etisha sheepishly tries to take the blame, saying that it was she who broke it, but the Duke confesses that it was he who tore her dress last night. An image of him leaning over her and touching her dress comes to her mind. She remembers with horror how he lay next to her in bed. The girl is shocked to realize that all this was not a dream. The Duke apologizes, saying that it is his fault and that he miscalculated his strength. The maids, eavesdropping behind the door, blush and misinterpret his words about not having calculated his strength. The Duke explains that he invited the designer and could not keep his word. He says that he wants to make amends with these gifts and asks her to accept them. Etisha, embarrassed, accepts the gifts, trying to control herself so as not to betray her feelings. She understands that this is the Duke's way of showing everyone their close relationship and decides to accept his version of the torn dress. Opening one of the boxes, she is delighted to see the legendary angel heart decoration. She recalls reading about this decoration in the fairy tales she loved as a child. Legend has it that one day a pink diamond fell from the sky, and the crown prince made 7 pieces of jewelry from it. He gave each of them to his bride throughout the week, and she burst into tears of happiness. Then they got married and lived happily ever after. Etisha can't believe that such an extraordinary treasure from a fairy tale is now in her hands. The Duke confirms that this is the very first of 7 necklaces made from the angel heart. Etisha panics and says that this necklace is too expensive for her. Cain dismisses it casually, saying it's just a stone, but the girl knows it's a very expensive stone. He takes another necklace out of the box, saying that he chose it because it would suit her. The Duke asks Etisha to hold her hair so that he can place the ornament on her. He gently clasps the necklace around her neck. Cain notes with satisfaction that, as expected, it suits her very well. The Duke offers to look at the other gifts, but Etisha refuses, not wanting to delay him any longer. She touches the necklace with reverence, promising to take care of it. The maids watching this scene whisper with delight that the Duke gave her the heart of an angel, and even smiled. The maids are delighted to hear that the Duke tore Etisha's dress last night, wondering if he was the man they knew. Baroness Etisha L. suddenly became the Duke's fiancée, and the most interesting topic of conversation in society. The maids in the castle gossip with delight about how passionate the Duke is. The servants in the stables are discussing the fact that he gave her the angel heart, and Lady Cyril has invited her to tea. Maid Marin proudly says that Lady Etisha has become a famous figure in the capital, having received land, an estate, and gifts from the emperor. In the reflection of the mirror, Etisha sees herself, realizing that she is now different from others. Etisha's importance grows every day, and all this happens without her knowledge. Judith is shocked and can't believe the rumors that Cain tore Etisha's dress. She writes a letter in despair, unable to come to terms with what is happening. A couple of days later, Marquis Hexion thanks Judith for accepting his invitation despite her busy schedule. Marquis Hexion wishes everyone a great time and fun. One of the ladies contemptuously wonders what the Marquis was thinking when he invited a commoner here. The Marquis reminds Judith that she only has a month. He means that the wedding of the Duke and Etishi will take place in a month. Hexion says that in the eyes of the aristocrats, she is now the daughter of a duchess and the mistress of a duke. But as soon as Etisha becomes a duchess, everyone will forget about her. Judith is devastated to realize that if the two get married, it will be the end for her. The Marquis says she has a month to strengthen her position. He advises her to find allies and not allow anyone to treat her inappropriately. Hexion smiles and suggests that she start with Countess Mongmaid. Judith, following his advice, accidentally spills tea on the Countess's dress and immediately apologizes. Countess Mongmaid is furious and shouts that everyone saw Judith deliberately spill tea on her. One of the ladies says that even if it is a mistake, Judith spilled water on the Countess and must be punished. Judith feigns remorse and apologizes, offering to help dry her dress. The Countess rudely pushes her hand away, asking who she is to touch it with her dirty hands. Madame Cyril suddenly intervenes, coldly declaring that she did not bring a dirty child with her. The Countess, in shock, complains that Judith deliberately spilled tea on her. She is sure that the girl harbored a grudge against her after the incident at the banquet. Cyril recalls how, at a banquet, a haughty lady slapped her adopted daughter in the face. She asks the Countess with a smile if she knows this reckless lady. Cyril advises the Countess to let go of her anger, and she, frightened, agrees with this wonderful advice. Cyril, with icy calm, says that thanks to Madame Mongmaid, who understands the law, she will be lenient with her child's mistakes. The Countess is furious when she realizes that this slut has secured the support of Madame Cyril. Marquis Hexion approaches the Countess, compliments her, and apologizes for today's incident. He says that the law of nobility says not to disdain injustice, but he cannot speak out against the Countess. The Countess, embarrassed by his attention, says that he should not apologize. The Marquis hopes that she will be more attentive in the future, as he does not want to see commoners here. He notes with surprise that he thought she would need this child more than anyone else. The Countess does not understand what he means. The Marquis explains that with the wedding of Duke Kane, a new duchess will appear in society. He hints that Madame Cyril will soon leave high society, and her place will be taken by Baroness Etisha L. Countess Mongmaid thinks with disdain of the shameless girl Etisha L. The Marquis asks if this means that she should sit on the throne of the upper crust of society. He says with a smile that he considers her more worthy of this place than anyone else. Hexion suggests that she use Judith, whom she considers a commoner, for her own purposes. He calls Judith a means of shaking the greatness of a society that stands like a mountain. The Marquis convinces her that she simply must take advantage of this opportunity. Meanwhile, Etisha is in her room, wondering if the Duke will sleep with her today, and remembering the past. She walks down a corridor lined with portraits and realizes that these are portraits of all the Vintels. At the very end, she sees a portrait of the young Duke Kane and is touched by how cute he was. The girl notices under the portrait the date of his birth, the 1st year of Varus, the 5th of the gods, the 7th star. The Duke finds Etisha in the corridor and asks what she is doing here alone. The girl panics and tries to come up with an excuse to avoid admitting that she didn't know his birthday. She awkwardly says that she was just looking at the portraits and got a little lost. Etisha notices an empty space on the wall, as if a portrait was missing. She sees portraits of father and son standing shoulder to shoulder and feels uncomfortable. The girl tries to change the subject by asking where the maids are and explains that she didn't invite them along. The Duke notices her pallor and, worried, suggests calling a doctor. Kane asks if something is bothering her. Etisha decides to apologize and bows to him. She admits that she didn't know it was his birthday tomorrow and apologizes, assuming there would be a reception. The Duke calmly announces that they are not holding celebrations in honor of his birthday. He explains that he hasn't been used to celebrating it since childhood, and this year it will be the same. Kane says he doesn't want to waste his time on such complicated things. Etisha remembers how Lorraine went out of her way every year to throw a lavish celebration. She timidly suggests that everything will be fine if it turns out not to be so difficult. Now, knowing that tomorrow is his birthday, she can't let this day be ordinary. The girl says that she received a lot of help and gifts from him. That's why she wants to repay him with at least the slightest help. The Duke asks with surprise if his birthday is so important to her, and she hopes to spend some time with him. Etisha sadly replies that, of course, because next year she will no longer be with him. Etisha realizes that she doesn't have much time left, and that she can only celebrate the Duke's birthday now. Kane agrees to spend time with her, and they go for a walk. In the carriage, Etisha notes with admiration that the houses and roads in the north look very neat. Head housekeeper Corda explains that this is because the Duke orders a regular maintenance and inspection every year. Etisha smiles and thinks that the climate in the north is harsh, but the Duke copes well, as expected. The maid asks why they decided to go for a walk. Etisha enthusiastically replies that she needs to buy something. Suddenly, the carriage stops, and the maid decides to get out to see what is going on. On the road, a hooded man blocks their path, and the guards shout at him to get out of the way. Etisha is horrified to recognize the man as Marcus Hexion, and realizes that those around her might think she is a murderer. Headmaid Corda confirms that the person in front of them is Marquis Hexion. Etisha steps out of the carriage, curtsies and introduces herself as Baroness Etisha L. The Marquis says with a grin that only 3 people are allowed to ride in the carriage with the Vantel coat of arms: the Duke, Madame Cyril, and Baroness Etiche. He believes that if the odds are 1 in 3, then it's worth throwing yourself under. The girl asks him in bewilderment what he means. Hexion approaches her and tenderly tells her that he missed her. He leans towards her and asks if she doesn't remember him. Etisha is confused, and the Marquis is sure that she could not have been in the carriage and still blocked the road. The girl remembers his invitation to tea. She apologizes for not being able to come that day, explaining that she is not well acquainted with the North. Etisha feels awkward and thinks she said something wrong, and the Marquis says with regret that she has forgotten him. She asks in surprise if he is confusing her with someone else. The Marquis, putting on his hood, agrees that it seems he was mistaken. The girl notices that his tone has suddenly become sharper, as if he is angry. He formally apologizes for stopping her carriage. The Marquis says that he has to go, as he is expected, and apologizes again. The maid asks if Etisha knows the Marquis, but she replies that she met him for the first time. Etisha thinks this is strange and wonders if they have met before. Meanwhile, Judith admires her reflection in the mirror as she tries on her new red dress. She looks at the letter doubtfully, wondering if this gift was sent to her by mistake. Judith rereads the letter and is convinced that Madame Mongmaid sent the gift to her. She remembers how at the last tea party she said that she would like to be friends with her. The girl wonders hopefully if this means that Madame Mongmaid now treats her as the Duke's wife. In her new chic dress, she feels like the main character of the ball. Judith wonders anxiously what Kane will say when he sees her like this. She blushes, dreaming that he will treat her differently. The girl decides to urgently see Kane and sets off to look for him. Meanwhile, Etisha has prepared some kind of gift for the Duke and is worried whether he will like it. The Duke enters the dining room and Etisha greets him, inviting him to sit down. He says he heard she was looking for him and asks if something happened. Etisha hands the Duke a gift, a magical plant in a glass sphere. She explains that she chose this plant so that he could take care of it and grow it for a long, long time. In her imagination, she is wishing the Duke a happy birthday while sitting inside a huge flower. The girl hopes that this year will be a happy one for him and thanks him for everything. The Duke is shocked to realize that she wants to congratulate him every year, even after her death. A terrible truth flashes through his mind. Etisha will die within a year. He imagines how she will be gone, how she will be in pain, and how she will die. These thoughts made the Duke's heart ache greatly. Noticing his silence, Etisha anxiously asks if he liked the gift. Suddenly, the girl falls, losing consciousness, and the Duke screams her name in horror. The Duke, in a panic, supports Etisha, realizing that things are bad, and shouts for a doctor to be called immediately. The girl comes to and, trying to calm him down, says that she is fine. She assures that this is only the second symptom, and she is fine. Etisha blames herself, because it was because of her that the terrarium that she gave to the Duke broke. She is relieved to see that the stone with the image and the lotus flowers are intact and just need to be placed in another container. The girl notices that the Duke is wet and says with concern that he might get sick. He asks her to wait a second and begins to wipe the moisture from her clothes. The Duke turns away sheepishly, saying he's glad she's okay. Judith, who witnessed this scene, appears at the door in a red dress. Etisha panics and thinks about what she should do if Dite saw her attack. The Duke holds the unconscious Etisha in his arms and asks Judith what happened. Judith, feigning embarrassment, says she came to show him her new outfit. She explains that Madame Mongmaid sent her this gift and she wanted to show it off, words of congratulations that she wanted to say to Kane, but which Atisha said flashed through her mind. Judith is shocked to realize that Atisha actually wished him a happy birthday. She can't believe it, because Kane always refused to celebrate it. Judith thinks bitterly that no one will be able to get him and looks at her reflection. She is convinced that she knows Kane better than anyone and thinks about him more than Atisha. Judith decides that she should be Kane's companion. She dreams of being cared for by Madame Cyril and being close to the Duke. Judith dreams of the gifts from Kane that Atisha is now receiving. She is convinced that it is she, and not Atisha, who should receive respect from the maids and servants. Judith swears that she will definitely become Kane's companion and take Atisha's place. In her dream, Marquis Hexion appears and asks with a smile why his canary is crying. Waking up, Judith desperately asks the Marquis what she should do. She promises to do anything if only he would tell her what to do. The Marquis congratulates her on her ability to escape from the cage. Meanwhile, the Duke sits at Atisha's bedside and asks if she is having trouble breathing. He assumes that she felt ill because he forced her to go outside. Atisha denies this and says that Corda and the Knights helped her get home earlier. Atisha tells the Duke that they accidentally ran into Marquis Hexion that day. She explains that he suddenly jumped out in front of the carriage, and they almost ran him over. The girl adds that she felt as if he knew her, although she had never met him before. The Duke says he should have told her earlier, but there was no time. He warns her that in the aristocratic world, there are two people she should be wary of. The first is Madame Mongmaid, the North's leading gossip and scandalmonger. The second person is Marquis Hexion. The Duke advises her, regardless of the situation, not to pay attention to him. He warns that the Marquis is dangerous, loves to play with women, and the life of anyone who gets involved with him will be ruined. Atisha listens to him in horror, thinking that this will never happen. Atisha promises to take the Duke's warning into account. He carefully covers her with a blanket and advises her to sleep. The girl is worried about him, but he asks her not to worry and to sleep. The next morning, Atisha drinks tea and worries that Judith might have noticed her hypermanic symptoms. She notes with relief that she has so far managed to hide her illness, and things almost got more complicated. The Duke's mother calls her, and Atisha happily responds. Cyril shows her the wedding guest list. Atisha sees many outstanding people on the list and says the list is perfect. She adds that this is her wedding and the wedding of the Vintel family, so mother's guests are her guests. Cyril praises her with a smile for her sensitivity and beautiful words. Atisha thanks Cyril with a smile for the praise, saying that she is very kind. An embarrassed Cyril decides to leave the guest list as is, thinking that Atisha is the nicest person in the empire. She hands Atisha another invitation, just in case. Cyril explains that her daughter-in-law's opinion is more important than anything else, and this is an invitation for the Heinz family. Atisha is horrified to imagine her entire former family coming to the north. The Duke's mother apologizes, saying that he should have asked her anyway, and Atisha thanks her for that. Cyril orders the maid not just to throw away the invitation, but to tear it up and burn it. She adds that the ashes should be placed in water, frozen, and then the ice should be chopped with an axe. Atisha asks with a smile whether it would be a good idea to pour some more oil on the ice and set it on fire again. She says that she wants to tear up this invitation herself, showing her determination. At the estate of Marquis Hexion, a secret event begins under cover of night. The Marquis asks his canary with a smile if she is ready. Judith, wearing a red mask, asks doubtfully if she has to wear this dress. She says that she now hates this dress, although she was happy about it just recently. Hexion says she has no choice, because people without support like her must cling to any opportunity. He advises her to be patient, because if she manages today, she will be able to have dresses like these forever. Judith, clenching her fists, realizes that the Marquis is right and decides that today she will get her way. She enters the hall, having decided to love Kayan today and come to the ball as his lover. The girl confidently thinks that she is doing well, and she just needs to wait to see what the Marquis says. A waiter approaches her and asks with concern if she is okay. Judith takes off her mask, assuring that she is fine. The guests are shocked to recognize her as Judith, and are perplexed as to how a commoner got into a private ball. The aristocrats understand that someone brought her here. An image of Duke Kane embracing Judith appears in their minds, and they decide that he has brought her. The guests come to the conclusion that this girl is the Duke of Kayan's mistress. Meanwhile, at Vintel Castle, the assistant reports that he has found him and that he is still alive. The Duke replies with a grin that, of course, he is alive, because he is not one of those who will die easily. The assistant assumes that someone is helping him. Kane agrees, saying that he has information and already knows. He calmly looks at the plant given to him by Etisha and orders that observation be continued. The assistant is perplexed as to what the Duke is thinking about and cannot understand him. He notices that the Duke is constantly fiddling with Lady Etishi's terrarium. Kane's memory flashes back to Etisha's words, congratulating him on his birthday. The assistant, observing the Duke, vows to change his name if he is not in love. Judith, remembering the Marquis's words, comes to the conclusion that he was right. She thinks with delight that if she appears in this dress, everyone will think that the Duke loves her. The girl goes into her mother's room to talk to her. Judith falls to her knees in tears before Cyril. The Duke's mother says with a cold expression that she has heard rumors about her good relationship with Marquise Hexion. Judith tries to justify herself, but Cyril already knows that she invited the Marquise to the tower and walked with him. Cyril sympathetically tells Judith that she is now at the age when men begin to be interesting, and because of Kane's wedding, she did not have time for her. She hopes that Judith will marry a reliable and intelligent man and will be a beloved wife, not just a concubine. The Duke's mother promises to take care of everything and find her the man she desires. Judith didn't expect to hear something like that and thought that Madame was scolding her, but she cared so much about her. She decides that since Cyril wants to see her happy, he will let her be with Kane. Judith tearfully admits that she likes Kane. She says that if they get married, she will stay with her mother forever. Cyril slaps her in a rage. She screams that it is impossible, and the two of them will never be together. Cyril grabs her hand and demands that she swear that she will never say such a thing again. Cyril is furious and demands that Judith swear that she will not perceive Kane as a man. Realizing her harshness, she apologizes to the crying girl. Judith, in tears, begs to be left alone. Cyril agrees and, leaving, says that she sent the doctor, and if something hurts, she should tell him. Time passed, and one spring day, a festival began in the Empire. The Empire's Spring Festival was celebrated on every corner. Etisha is surprised to learn that Madame Mongmaid has sent them an invitation to the Spring Festival. She is surprised that even in the north, where there is no spring at all, this festival is celebrated. The Duke explains that it is called a spring festival, but all the action takes place indoors so that people do not get sick. Etisha, holding the invitation in her hands, thinks that since she has only been in the north for a short time, it would be better for her to attend such events. The Duke says he will be glad if she goes, and they decide to accept the invitation. He assures that he is not busy, and she does not bother him. Kane explains that after they got married, he became her escort to all events. Etisha doesn't think she has much time to waste on balls, but if it's for a short time, then it's okay. She happily says that she will be able to wear the dress and jewelry he gave her to this ball. The Duke clenches his fist, thinking that one day Etisha will die, and he will never be able to attend parties with her again. The girl says with a smile that he gave her so many beautiful dresses that now she is at a loss as to which one to wear. She suggests wearing a new dress to match in honor of the Spring Festival, but she also has some that she has never worn. The Duke suggests organizing an evening so that she can change many dresses, since this is normal for the hostess of the event. Kane says with a smile that he was thinking of holding the reception on the grounds of the Vintel estate. The Duke suggests that Etisha wear different outfits on different days, since they have decided to host a reception. The girl says with a laugh that this way you can choose the theme of the ball for the whole week. Meanwhile, Countess Mongmaid asks Judith if she remembered the text. The Countess explains that the highlight of the Spring Festival is the opening song, and the person performing it is the main person of the festival. Judith assures her that she stayed up for several nights to learn the song, and she can do it. The Countess thinks with a smile that Baroness Etisha will come today, and the Duke will accompany her. She decides to make everyone understand today that Judith is the Duke's true chosen one. The Countess intends to ensure that the label of the main wife, worse than a concubine, remains with Etisha for the rest of her life. She advises Judith to cover her overly exposed shoulders, calling it vulgar. Judith apologizes sheepishly, and the Countess asks if Madame Cyril hadn't warned her. The Countess notices that Judith becomes sad at the mention of Cyril and considers whether she should win her over to her side. She reassures Judith that everything is fine, as Madame Cyril is famous for her cruelty. The Countess, with feigned concern, says that if Judith is having a hard time with her, she can always come to her. Judith tearfully admits that she thought her mother cared about her, But it turned out that was not the case at all. The Countess strokes her head, thinking that if she continues to cry, she will not be able to sing well. She suggests pretending that nothing happened today and hands her a handkerchief. The Countess says that if Judith wants to talk, she knows where to find her, and gives her this handkerchief. Judith looks at Madame Mungmaid with gratitude, believing her to be a truly good person. Meanwhile, Duke Kane and Baroness Atisha arrive at the spring festival. The guests are surprised to note that the Duke, who usually skips evenings, attended the ball as an escort. Countess Mongmaid notices the angel heart pendant on Edish and thinks everything is fine. She gloats, anticipating Atisha being disgraced right in front of Duke Kane. The Countess announces the beginning of the spring festival and a special opening song. She introduces Judith, whose singing, she says, will invite spring to their land. The guests begin to whisper, thinking that since Dite is on stage, it means she is the Duke's mistress. The Countess notes that northern people are not accustomed to the spring festival. She says that Miss Dita, the evening's performer, is also from the north, and is a little awkward singing alone. The Countess, with a sly smile, thinks that it would be good if someone could support her. She approaches Baroness Atisha and invites her to join Dita. The guests take up her suggestion, asking the Baroness to sing and let them hear the song from her as well. Countess Mongmaid gloats that when her first wife and mistress stand next to each other during the singing, everyone will have something to compare it to. The Duke, with icy calm, says that he cannot believe that she is asking this of his guest. The Countess, with feigned surprise, replies that he is exaggerating and that this is not rudeness. She claims that she only wants to honor the Baroness by having her sing a spring song. The Duke sarcastically asks if this is an honor and asks to explain the meaning. He asks why invite a commoner to such a luxurious place. The Countess tries to justify herself by saying that it was anonymous advice, and she was told that Dite has a talent for singing. Kane scornfully says that she decided to use Dite for her own purposes, to slander Lady Atisha. He adds that he was suspicious of her intentions from the very beginning. Atisha, interrupting their argument, says with a smile that she thinks she can sing. Atisha says she doesn't want the atmosphere of the festival to be ruined because of her. She adds with a smile that she wants to sing herself. The Duke sympathetically says that if everything is okay, then she should go. Atisha asks the Countess for permission to go on stage and happily accepts it. She invites Judith to sing the first verse since they will be singing together. Judith hesitantly agrees, and Atisha says she'll pick up the slack. In her mind, Judith decides to prove to everyone that she is more suitable for the Duke than Atisha. The Countess gloats, thinking that even though everything didn't go according to plan, Atisha will still be disgraced in front of everyone. However, as soon as Atisha begins to sing, the guests freeze in amazement, struck by her wonderful voice. Judith listens to her in shock, not believing that Atisha could have such a voice. Atisha sings, remembering how much she loved music as a child. She couldn't perform because her sister was completely tone-deaf. The guests applaud her, calling her performance magnificent and incredible. After the festival, Atisha thanks the Duke for agreeing to return. She says that she is not tired at all and would like to sing some more. The girl dreams of singing as much as she wants in a place that looks like a castle, without interruption. The Duke promises to take her to a place where she can sing to her heart's content. They get out of the carriage in the middle of a snowy forest, and the Duke invites her to follow him. They approach the treehouse, and Atisha asks in surprise what kind of place this is. Kane says that no one will disturb them from singing here, because he lived in this house when he was little. Atisha is surprised to realize that this is the Duke's secret place. He helps her inside. The girl looks around the house with delight, saying how beautiful it is here. The Duke offers to return to the castle if she is uncomfortable, but she hastily refuses. Atisha insists that she really likes this place. She was just so surprised she didn't know what to say. She adds that for some reason she feels very comfortable here. The girl says with a smile that she really likes this place. Kane says that when he was a child, he often practiced with a sword in the forest. And if he wanted to run away from everyone, he thought about this place first of all. The Duke admits that he had even forgotten about it a little, but remembered it while she was singing. The Duke says that he really enjoyed Atisha's singing and that she can come here anytime. Meanwhile, Lorraine is screaming in rage about why she still can't contact Atisha. She is going crazy because her sweet and beautiful doll now lives on her own. Lorraine is devastated to realize that Tisha has been in the north for 2 weeks, and she has not been able to contact her. The stepmother tries to calm Lorraine, who is becoming hysterical. The girl screams that Tisha is hers, and she should be next to her. The stepmother thought that she would get better if she took a little care of her. But the situation is becoming increasingly unstable, and this is a big problem. Lorraine covers her face with her hands in despair, knowing that everyone has received invitations from the Wintel family. She realizes that she also needs to come to Tisha's wedding, and this brings a sinister smile to her face. Lorraine threatens her mother that if she locks her in her room again, she will bite off her tongue and kill herself. The stepmother, horrified, tries to stop her, but Lorraine leaves. She decides that she needs to go north to meet Tisha. Lorraine vows to bring her home, and if that doesn't work, she will leave the family too. With a crazy smile, she decides that she will live in the north until the day her Tisha dies. The maid Marin notices that the Duke left early today and advises Atisha to spend more time with him. Atisha replies with a smile that they were together at a reception yesterday, and he even showed her his secret place. Marin sadly says that she still wants him to take care of her more. She reminds him that Atisha has come all the way from the capital to the north, and the only one she can rely on is the Duke. Atisha hugs the maid, saying that she is wrong, and that the Duke is not the only one she can rely on. Atisha says that Marin and her mother are important to her, and she takes care of them. She realizes that she has become a great support for herself. The girl understands that before getting to know the Duke, she first needed to understand herself. Corda, the manager, enters her room and tells her that they need to go to the Snow Palace. Atisha looks with delight at the Snow Castle, where the Duke and Duchess of Vintel live. She joyfully greets her mother, who welcomes her warmly. Cyril shows her the outfit they have prepared for the ceremony. She says that there are 2 weeks until the wedding, and she needs to try on a dress. Atisha looks in admiration at her reflection in the magnificent dress. Corta and Cyril are delighted to note that the dress was made for her, and they quickly finished preparing it. Cyril is happy to say that the Vintel family heirloom, passed down through generations, is a perfect fit for Atisha. The girl looks at herself doubtfully, wondering if she is worthy of such a valuable dress. She realizes that if it is a relic, then every Duchess of Vintel has worn this dress to a wedding before. Cyril says there was an exception in her form. She explains that she didn't wear it on her wedding day, and her husband wasn't wearing a suit. The Duke's mother hugs Atisha, telling her not to worry about trifles. She helps her fix her dress, and Atisha thinks there is no point in taking everything seriously. The girl decides that she needs to think about herself first. Like on the day she sang, she wonders when she will be able to meet Kayan's father. Meanwhile, Lorraine finally reaches the north in the pouring rain. Happy to meet Atisha, Lorraine accidentally bumps into the man and yells at him in anger. He coldly tells her it's time to leave, calling her by her first name, Charles. The man decides that it is time for them to return to the Vintel estate. Lorraine is shocked to realize that in front of her is Charles Vintel, the father of the Duke of Caen. She decides to follow him to find out where to look for the Vintel family. The girl can't believe that she has to follow them secretly. She throws back her hood, telling herself that Lorraine Hines doesn't need to be so pathetic. Lorraine stops Charles and introduces herself as the daughter of Viscount Hines. She adds that she is the older sister of Atisha, who will soon become the Duchess of Vintel, but Charles looks down on her. Suddenly, she is attacked by an unknown man, very similar to the one she encountered in the alley. Lorraine is horrified to realize that Charles Vintel simply ignored her and realized it was she in the alley. She catches up with him and apologizes for the incident in the alley. Charles says coldly that he doesn't go to such places, pretending not to understand what they are talking about. Lorraine says with a smile that fate itself brought them together, and she has nowhere to stay until her sister's wedding. She hints that they need to stick together, and Charles invites her to stay in their castle as a guest until the wedding. Lorraine is surprised that everything is so simple, because recently he just walked past. She notices that Charles's eyes are sky blue, while the man from the alley had dark ones. Lorraine realizes that Charles is pretending to be someone else, and that it was not he who was in the alley. Meanwhile, Atisha joyfully greets the returning Duke, noting that he is earlier than usual today. Cain asks with a warm smile if she was waiting for him. Atisha says shyly that today she is having tea with her mother. She adds with delight that yesterday she really enjoyed herself at the Snow Palace, and she even tried on a wedding dress. The girl notices that the Duke looks more tired and gloomy today. She timidly asks if she can now go out and meet him like this. Atisha immediately blushes, scolding herself for saying such a stupid thing. She quickly asks him to forget, saying that she said nonsense. The girl tries to justify herself by saying that he will be uncomfortable if she waits for him outside. She apologizes, saying that they had not agreed on this initially. The Duke gently stops her and tells her that he doesn't like it, and he hopes she won't do it again. He hugs her tenderly, telling her that they will spend the rest of their time together the way they want. Etisha hopefully asks the Duke if his words mean that she can stay and live here as she wishes. The Duke confirms her guess and even allows her to meet him or drink tea with her mother if she wants. The girl takes his hand and asks him to come with her with a smile. They decide to go and have tea with their mother, the three of them. Meanwhile, Judith begs Cyril to make her a full member of the Vintel family if she truly loves her as her own daughter. Judith asks if she can truly become her daughter. In tears, she promises to never think about Cayenne again if her mother agrees.